CBSE Board, Class 11, History, Chapter 3, Part 26, Audio by Renee Matthew. Because of repression and forced labor, especially on Arawaks, they started retorting. They were not happy. They expressed their unhappiness with the explorers from Spain. The diseases of the old world, particularly smallpox, wreaked havoc on the Arawaks because they contracted smallpox and they had no much immunity to withstand this particular deadly disease, and that too they faced large-scale deaths. The local people imagined these diseases were caused by invisible bullets with which the Spaniards attacked them. So they did not have much exposure. So because of that, they were made to believe, or they believed in all these kind of unethical and something which is not guided by reason. Okay, where they believed, their conscience made them believe that it's because of the bullets which were fired by the Spaniards that they contracted this disease. Right? That is how the locals believed. And the extinction of the Arawaks and all traces of their life is a silent reminder of the tragic encounter with Spaniards. It's only because of the encounter with the Spaniards they contracted this disease, but not from the bullets. It's because of the repression. It is because of the exploitation. It was because of forced labor. Already the Arawaks were very small in number, and along with all these repression, they were not able to withstand it. They started deteriorating and smallpox contracted them and they died. So that is the reality, the fact check behind that. Now the expeditions of Columbus does not stop there. It was followed by 3 more voyages I told you earlier, and there were a lot of successful exploration of Central and South America. Now they found out the new land, America, but now they had to go further to the other parts, especially the Central and South America. So within half a century, the Spanish had explored and laid claim to a vast area of the Western Hemisphere. So already by the half of the century, they were able to claim a vast area of the Western Hemisphere. And from approximately latitudes 40 degrees north to 40 degrees south, without anybody challenging them, they were able to dominate and take part. They were able to take control over the Western Hemisphere without even the knowledge or interference of anybody else. Do you know who these are? The Spanish conquered lands of 2 great empires of this region, and it was only because of Hernán Cortés. It is on the left side of the screen, Hernán Cortés, and this is Francisco Pizarro. It's because of these 2 people that 2 great empires were established by the Spaniards in America. The explorations were obviously financed by members of the landed gentry, that is, people who had possession of land in Spain, officials of municipal councils and noblemen. All these people financed the explorations because they wanted money and treasures. They joined the expedition also. They supplied their own equipment in exchange, and they also financed the expedition. And why was that? It was for the share of the booty. Booty means the plunder, the kind of things that they will get by plundering and looting a particular place. So it was for the share of the booty, the plundered resources they expected from the conquest. So they said, if you give us the share of a booty, then definitely we will help you to get across the different places in the world. Now Cortés and the Aztecs, a group. The Cortés and his soldiers conquered Mexico swiftly and ruthlessly. He was a person, Cortés. In 1519, Cortés set sail from Cuba to Mexico. But of course, he had a group with him, and that is why I told you that this is a group. So the Cortés group, they set sail to Mexico, where he made friends with the Totonacs. Totonacs was a group who wanted to secede from Aztec rule. They just wanted to go away. Okay, they wanted to be separate. They wanted to be the successor of the Aztec rules. So that was about the group called Cortés, or guided by Cortés. Look at this picture. These 2 pictures shows the rule of the Aztecs, especially the plundering of the Cortés and how the tribals fought with the Spaniards. It was not very easy because they had horses, they had a lot of resources, they had all these weapons, but the tribals, of course, they had to depend on the arrows and spears and such kind of things. But we cannot underestimate them because they tried their level best. But it was not very easy. The Aztec king, who was the Aztec king? Montezuma, sent an official to meet him. He was terrified at the aggressiveness of the Spanish. So Aztec king, that was a different group, and this king sent an official to meet the Spaniard, that is Coates. Their gunpowder and their horses were terrific. It was really scary. Montezuma himself was convinced that Coates was the reincarnation of an exiled god who had turned to avenge himself. So Aztec king, by this time, you know that he's a tribal king and his name is Montezuma. And Spanish people, under the aggressiveness of Coates, it was not very easy to actually overrun them, to overrule them, or to even get your freedom from them, because they had their horses, they had gunpowder and all these things. And the local people always, they have pagan beliefs, and they were made to believe that Coates was a reincarnation of an exiled god because he was so powerful, and that is why the gods came to avenge himself. And that was the kind of belief that they had, the Aztec. Look at the picture of the king Montezuma, the Aztec king. The Spaniards started pressing, they started showing their power over Laxalans, fierce fighters who submitted not only after a stiff resistance. So after dominating a group known as Aztecs, now it was time to press against the Laxalans, that is the fierce fighters. And they offered a stiff resistance. They resisted them. They submitted. They were not like the Aztecs. They kind of pressed against the Spaniards, but they offered a stiff resistance. The Spaniards, in spite of all these things, proceeded to massacre them cruelly. They just wanted to crush them in spite of all these things. And you should understand that it's not very easy to stand against the tribals. So they marched to Tenochtitlan, and they reached there on 8th November 1590. Okay, so that is where they were able to overpower the Laxcalans, the fierce fighters, but it was not very easy for the Laxcalans to fight against the Spaniards because of their power and because of the resources that they had. The invading Spaniards were dumbstruck at the sight of Tenochtitlan because they were very fierce. They were 5 times larger than Madrid and had 100,000 inhabitants, twice the population of Seville, Spain's largest city. They were dumbstruck because this particular group was very large, and they must have a thought of underestimating the tribals by this time, because they were able to conquer Arawaks, they were able to conquer the Aztecs and everybody. But now this particular group known as Laxcalans or Tenochtitlan, these two names were frightening them. It became a nightmare for the Spaniards. Of course, Coates was very friendly received, was cordially received by Montezuma. He was the head of the Aztec. The Aztecs led the Spaniards into the heart of the city, and there the emperor showered them with gifts because there is no other choice. And his people were apprehensive. They were very scared. They were not happy with the sight of the Europeans, having heard of the massacre of the Laxcalans. So after this particular incident, in spite of the large army which the Spaniards encountered in Tenochtitlan, in spite of that, they were able to overpower these people. And what was the next step from the emperor Montezuma? Just to shower them with gifts. And people were really apprehensive. They were very scared because they heard of the massacre which happened and how the Europeans were able to overpower and kill the people in Laxcalans, okay, because of their power. So they were very apprehensive. Now, an Aztec account described the situation. Okay, so one person from the tribal area is describing about what happened in those days. It was as though Tenochtitlan had given shelter to a monster, so the Europeans were addressed as monster. The people of Tenochtitlan felt as if everyone had eaten stupefying mushrooms, as if they had seen something astonishing. Terror dominated everyone, as if all the world were being disemboweled. People fell into a fearful slumber. So at the sight of the Europeans, people became scared, they became apprehensive, they were astonished, and they had to take their refuge in fear. They were not able to come out of the shell of fear by looking at these people. It was so scary. It was a nightmare for them. Now the fears of the Aztecs was greatly sensed by the Spaniards. It was well founded. Courts without any explanation placed the emperor under house arrest, because courts very well understood that the Aztecs were very afraid of them. They were very scared of them by the expression. And of course the emperor gave so much of gift. He loaded the emperor with lot of gifts. So they understood that the emperor and the people were equally scared of the group which was guided by courts. And what did courts do? He, without any embarrassment, without any second thought, he arrested the emperor, and he put him in house arrest and attempted to rule in his name. Then he said that now I am the emperor, I am Montezuma. So in an attempt to formalize the emperor's submission to Spain, courts installed Christian images in the Aztec temple. So he wanted to spread Christianity also. He said that now I am the emperor and I will rule over you. He started installing Christian images in all the temples because he just wanted to do away with the pagan belief. Montezuma was a chief. On his part, suggested a compromise. He wanted a compromise with the Europeans and placed both Aztec and Christian images in the temple. He did not want that pagan belief to be completely washed away. He requested the Europeans to at least give some respect to their own tradition and belief, almost imploring them. Now at this point of time, Coates had to leave his deputy. He had to leave his deputy in charge and hurry back to Cuba. So he asked one of his fellowmen to take care of this place, the deputy in charge, and he went back to Cuba. The high-handedness of the Spanish occupation and their incessant demands for gold provoked a general uprising. So the Spanish invaders were becoming very cruel and powerful day by day, and the kind of demand that they had over gold and silver was very high. It was incessant. It was not even decreasing. It was so regular. Always it was increasing. Okay, the demand was so high. In spite of getting so much, they were not happy with what they got. They were very greedy. Because of that, Alvarado ordered a massacre during the Aztec Spring Festival of Huitzilopochtli. So during the Spring Festival, it was very easy for Alvarado to order a massacre during the Aztec Spring Festival. So when Coates came back from Cuba after finishing his work in Cuba on 25th June 1520, he had on his hands a full-blown crisis, because the tribals must have retaliated in a way that they never expected. This is a depiction of the Spring Festival and all that took place during the Spring Festival. It was not very easy for the Spanish people to overrule and dominate the tribes right now. The causeways were cut, all the routes were cut, the bridges taken away, and the net closed. What did the tribals do? They cut everything. They cut off the bridges, they cut off all the routes. They caused much trouble to the Spains because he was not able to come back. It's only because of these routes that they're able to enter their territory. The Spaniards faced acute shortage of food and drinking water. So without food and drinking water, will they be able to survive? No. So Coates was forced to retreat. So you should understand that these people will only thrive if there are favorable situations. So when they did not get food and drinking water, it was not very easy to seize their power, seize the tribals, and Coates was forced to retreat after the Aztec Spring Festival of Huitzilopochtli, and that was under the supervision of Alvarado. Around this time, Montezuma died. Because of the mysterious circumstances, he was completely confused with what is happening in his land. But still the Aztecs continued to fight the Spaniards. The people were very strong. They did not give in easily. 600 conquistadors and many more of their Laxcalan allies were killed in what is known as the Night of Tears. So there is something known as Night of Tears which ensued after the attack at Alvarado, and 600 conquistadors and many people from the Laxcalan allies were killed, and that happened during an event known as Night of Tears, which is of great historical importance.